Thank you very much. Let me just click on the lamp, which I've done. So I think we can consider this inaugurated. And if I may, let me start with my address. Dennis, you could remove the screen share now. Good. Thank you very much, Dr. Meera, for that, for kicking off the show. It's very valuable to hear from you, as also from Dr. Satyanarayana about the purpose of this conclave. It's good to see our colleagues and friends here, Dr. Shailesh Nayak, Professor Tony Hay, Dr. Sai Baba, and everyone else. This is a very important time for us to look at how information is collected, collated, and made accessible. And let me very briefly, without getting into too much detail, summarize what I think are the challenges and perhaps the routes out of these challenges we face today. And people who are here, experts, will have much deeper and clearer views on it, and I'm looking forward to hear what Professor Tony Hay has to say. Fundamentally, we are at a situation today where information is increasingly becoming the source of rather polarized power. Knowledge and power have always gone together in human history, and access to knowledge has meant access to power. But in today's information age, the sharpness of the divide has increased enormously. Those who have access to the analysis of data can wield disproportionate power, and therefore we need to address how the rest of us should and can and must deal with that going forward. So let me summarize three different aspects of this concern. One, the relatively still backwaters of concerns about scientific publishing and scientists. These are very important topics for all of us as scientists, but they may not necessarily be ones which stir people outside. And second is the aspect which stirs people outside through big industry and what they do with these kinds of data. And finally, how they impact on people at variety of levels and what can people do about it. Now, first of all, let's take scientific publishing. Much of what we see in scientific publishing, even today, is a relic of the onset of the printing press. And therefore, those who could print were people who collected knowledge, filtered it, made it printable, brought out at great expense these printed documents and journals, and made them available. And of course, since a lot of effort went into developing quality documents, referring them, making sure that they're available, the net result was that the printed copy was expensive. For the printed copy to be accessible to a large number of people, we had libraries. Libraries subscribed to these copies and allowed you to walk into the library, sit down, and read it. If you wanted to take these journal volumes or articles home, you could borrow from the library, and for that you had to be a member of an institution or a member of the library, or later on they could be photocopied. But photocopying has the danger that they could also subsequently be photocopied, and therefore publishers again stepped in and found ways to charge for photocopy. This went on, and this went on in a manner which was parallel to the industrial scale development of science. Science in the late 19th century and in the 20th century was literally a gentleman's enterprise with institutions playing roles merely to host these people who are talented to pursue their interests in exploring the nature of the world around them, understanding it and changing it. This has changed inexorably, steadily, beginning substantially during the post-Second World War period, where major scientific institutions were started all over the world, including India, and science became very deeply connected with technology, and technology much more deeply connected with the growth of economies, and a feedback loop of various kinds moved the earlier industrial revolutions into speedier and speedier changes. The net result of this has been of two kinds. One, through the development and use of technology, through information in various ways, we have changed the world around us in extraordinary ways. We have moved from a situation where our purpose in understanding nature was to survive on this planet and to get benefit by putting barriers to the problems nature had for our growth and development, to a situation where we have exploited the planet to such an extent that the entire future of the planet depends on us. We are no longer objects painted on the canvas of Earth, but we wield the paintbrush. And therefore, the entire future of the planet, which we can see through the consequences on climate change, biodiversity, the way our habitats are, all of this depends on us. And science, technology, and innovation plays a great part both in what has happened and how we will be rescued from this. But while all this is going on, there's been another sea change, and that's in the information industry. Information, which was analyzed and key to all of this, as I've mentioned earlier, that is, it's not just our abilities as biological organisms, as animals, who have extraordinary capabilities, such as language and our ability to oppose thumb and forefinger, but we have transcended the restraints of natural selection and evolution and gone into cultural evolution as the principal mode of change through our societies, through our language, through our literature, through our information processing systems. And we can see all that in what we see in what is broadly called the structures of artificial intelligence and their consequences on us. So we have changed the planet in extraordinary ways, and we seem to be poised to change it much more in ways which are anchored on information. Now, the anchoring of information, as driven by what is broadly called artificial intelligence, is at its core based on something which says that the agnostic to context analysis of data in huge ways, combined with a deep understanding of specific disciplines, can lead to decision making across areas of work in a manner which the human mind is perhaps unable to deal with in any specific case. It is still true that artificial general intelligence is not yet feasible, but a narrower definition of artificial intelligence is increasingly becoming applicable and feasible in many specific areas. Now, this does not mean that our understanding of specific disciplines, a pathologist or an astronomer, is not necessary. They will be necessary and very valuable, but increasingly a combination of deep understanding and the analysis of information will give you advice, which is good. You will get excellent advice on what to do, where to go, what kind of job to take, who your partner should be, whether you'll succeed or not. This will be basically astrology with content. And this is going to be a big challenge, because if many of the things which you are doing or you're supposed to do comes with robust advice, what is the role for us as individuals? In many of the things we already do, we get advice from the internet. When we want to buy something to eat, if you can afford a smartphone, you actually look at various places, but you're also bombarded with suggestions depending on your taste, your past purchases, and so on and so forth. So there is a feeling, partly true, partly a worry, and partly a fear of the future, that you're going to have a situation where the future is dictated by others. In that situation, coming back to this aspect of scientific publishing, and I'd like to end here, is an enormous challenge. Because of the vestiges of print publishing, global publishers have hung on to that till recently, and they're changing now, in a manner where subscriptions and restricted access dominate the landscape. In India, for example, the total number of subscription fees paid to scientific journals is enormous. It runs into hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And this is something which is not good for two reasons. One, despite this enormous subscription, access is not uniformly available across the scientific community. Secondly, access to all our citizens should be available because internet publishing today doesn't in any way increase the cost. So if you pay a certain subscription rate, it should be that same subscription rate for all of India. Now, publishers have gotten around this by trying to pull the carpet from under this argument by saying, okay, we will make everything accessible at low or no subscription fees. We will move towards complete open access, but you should pay an exorbitant price for wanting to publish in our journals. We will pay this exorbitant price because we will have access to the best referees, and we have a totem pole of value attached to information. And if you want to publish in places of the highest value, you will have to pay the highest amount. Let's say, as people have speculated or argued from information coming out, to publish an article which is accepted in Nature will cost you something from $5,000 to $10,000. Now, both of these approaches are untenable in large economies such as India, where there is a requirement for a huge young demography to come up using the tools of science and technology. And if information is to be distributed, an opportunity to be democratically available, both the access to information and the access to be able to publish your information without having extortionary fees being paid is something which needs to be addressed. How can we address that is a challenge. Many people have proposed specific kinds of solutions, but fundamentally the solution which assumes that these structures are permanent and somehow one has to support them is, in my opinion, not correct. Yet, we need to have structures which, when these structures are removed, still allow the access to information and the high quality review of information. And that is the principal challenge we face as scientists, as librarians, as people who purvey information to the world, and people who assist people to make decisions based on information. I'd like to end by saying that if you are a citizen, a farmer, or a patient who's going to see a doctor, you should have access to the latest scientific information of every kind, both in its raw manner as well as annotated and in a reliable manner. So that's a big challenge. You should have it accessible bilingually in English and in your native language. And as an individual researcher, as an institution or groups of institutions, you should have the flexibility to disseminate this in a manner which, again, is reviewed well. This is the greatest challenge we have. And by clinging to publishing structures of the time of Gutenberg, we cannot solve this problem. Thank you very much.